This total has gone down 4 points from 226.5. Nick, tell me what's going to happen tonight.
I like the Lakers in this. Lakers over Pelicans. I don't trust the Pelicans in a playoff setting or in this. I consider it the playoffs, even though it's not considered the playoffs when you're looking at the play-in. The Pelicans have been a team that I have just had questions about the entire year. Not about the talent, but like where they are in terms of the big moments. They lost by 45 when they played the Lakers in that play-in or the in-season tournament. You got to change. There's play-in, there's in-season tournament. We got to get used to some of this a little bit. But they lost by 45 the last time they played this team. In that setting, sorry. And I just, like, Zion has played better since Brandon Ingram has been out. He's going to be back. But the Pelicans really struggle in clutch games this year too, right? You're within 5 points, 5 minutes to go in those games, like those types of situations, close games. They're 13-15 straight up in clutch games. They're 25th in net rating in those close games. They blew 14 double-digit leads this season, which is third most in the NBA. The Pelicans just don't step up in these important situations. And say what we want about the Lakers. We can make fun of them. We can say Anthony Davis always gets hurt or whatever, always sick, and that's a narrative that's there. The reality of it is the Lakers are still a very talented team with veterans that know how to play in these situations. And we can make fun of winning a title in the bubble, but like that was still a really difficult situation to be in. This Lakers team has won a title. It's not the same core. The Lakers have just been frustrating for me this year because you look at a team after the deadline last year, the minute they made all those trades after the trade deadline last year, I bet the Lakers to make the playoffs. And they were out of the playoff picture at that time. But I looked at the moves they made and said, they are better than what we're seeing right now. They made the Western Conference Finals. Got their ass whooped, but they made the Western Conference Finals. They're underachieving again this year, but they've got that veteran presence, and they've got guys like LeBron James and Anthony Davis, and obviously, specifically LeBron, that will take over this game. Like I said, I love the over 35.5 points and assists for LeBron. He's been flying over that number, averaging almost a triple-double over his last 10 games. He's been fantastic for them. LeBron is going to carry the Lakers in this game. I think the Pelicans are just a team that's in a spot right now when you look at this and say, I just don't trust them in really important situations. So, yeah, give me the Lakers. Give me the Lakers as an underdog in this, depending on obviously where you're shopping around and looking to spread. The total's very close in this. I think it's a higher scoring game. But prop-wise for me, it's big in on LeBron tonight for sure.
I think that's absolutely the way to go. And ultimately, you want the best player on the floor tonight is going to be the guy who has stepped up in situations like this before. That is LeBron. It's a short number. I'm on the Lakers as well and love your prop bet as well when it comes to LeBron. This is what he does. When you look at Tyrese Maxey, how much did you see his game grow when Joel Embiid was out and he really had to raise his level of play?
I would say a lot. I would say you saw him grow a lot. And the funny thing is, the crazy part is Tyrese was a little, I want to say, shy of taking over early in the season. There was games where, Nick Nurse would say, before Joel Embiid went out, he says, I need you to shoot the ball at least 25 times a game. And he's like, but Tobias was wide open and Kelly was cutting. He was like, look, no, I need you to shoot. I need you to shoot. And when Joel went out, it kind of got to a point where he realized in order for us to be in these games, I have to take over, right? And then let me take over. And then when teams start trying to switch defenses for me, then I'll start getting the ball to other guys. And then next thing you know, it will open things up for me late in games. So, yeah, that was a maturation. So when you look at it, it's kind of like the Joel Embiid injury was a bad one. But Tyrese looks at it as a blessing in disguise because the last couple of games that they played, Tyrese has been the one who was closing out the game for the 76ers. So, without Joel Embiid being there, it forced him to be into a role that all the Sixers are benefiting from.
Do you think what we've seen in the women's game this year, which is really remarkable because they're setting ratings records, you're hearing people talk about women's basketball in the same vein as the men's tournament. Does this continue into the WNBA, or is this going to be something that you see more isolated to the college game?
It can, but you need Caitlin Clark to continue to be as close to the Caitlin Clark at Iowa that we saw. That's really what this comes down to. You want to see that translate to the WNBA. You want to see it translate to that next level. If it doesn't, if she struggles her rookie year, you're going to lose a lot of that momentum that was built there. It's just the reality of what it is, right? Like we talk about basketball being a game of momentum. Well, it's also, they're both leagues of momentum. The NBA is going to be going through a transition soon with LeBron retiring and Steph Curry retiring. At some point, those guys are going to retire. Well, it's who then takes that baton from them as the next great players. You have all of this hype and all of this excitement around the women's game at the college level. But, you know, Diana Taurasi, again, she's not wrong, is that it's going to be more difficult for somebody like Caitlin Clark to go there. Sabrina Ionescu, like you just mentioned, like she was kind of the Caitlin Clark even before then Caitlin Clark and Paige Beckers. And you go back and there was a lot of hype around her. I would argue that Caitlin Clark has had even more than what Ionescu had when she was there. But she was who Caitlin Clark was before then. And it's, you know, carried over to a point, and the Liberty were one of those super teams that you built. So it's like you kind of have that. You need to have villains. You need to have really great players that are disliked by some. You need to have rivalries. And if you can kind of combine all of that emotion in this with the fact that Caitlin Clark is still playing like she did at Iowa or close to it, because she's really what's going to carry this first. I'm sorry. She just is. Yeah. She was the star at Iowa. She was the star in college. She has to be able to do that in the WNBA. It will grow. Women's sports continue to grow in terms of popularity, but it's based on momentum. And if the momentum doesn't carry over and continue, that's where the problem is. And that's what kind of sets it back a little bit. So we'll just have to see what Caitlin Clark looks like at the next level.
Yeah, I've always said, I think it's a really good point, is that you know you're doing something special when you force people to pay attention to you, regardless of the sport. And that's what Caitlin Clark did, right? So you were probably familiar with Caitlin Clark going into the season. You should have been, based on what she did last year. But she took it to another level where I'm showing highlights to other people. I'm showing my girlfriend, like, you got to see this Caitlin Clark girl. Like, she is unbelievable. She is a hell of a basketball player. And so she's saying, even if you don't follow what I'm going to make you pay attention because I'm so great. So yes, that momentum needs to continue. And then also, Nick, I think it's an interesting point too, is that, you know, when it comes to any sport, drama is a part of it, right? And rivalries are a part of it. But the women's game, because it hasn't been given the same attention or the treatment as the men's game in the past, and a lot of that has to do with money and popularity, then there is a groundswell effort, and I certainly understand this, to support one another and to lift one another up. At the same time, at some point, once there are rivalries that actually develop and you see more personalities come out, then that makes it interesting, right? There's some of that drama that is, I mean, look at the NBA. The NBA is the most petty of all the leagues. Guys are always chirping each other, going off on each other, sending messages to one another, right? But it's part of the drama. It's part of what makes it exciting. The women don't really have that luxury just yet, I feel like, because they are still in the process of building up the sport. But if you add that drama to the mix, I'm not saying for these women to go after each other, but personalities matter, rivalries matter, and it adds to the intrigue.